So I was conducting a workshop on how to build a virtual agent conversation and thought there are probably others that can benefit from this, and so here's a recording to take you through the process. So when I build a conversation, the first thing that I think about is the structure, and that's actually the hard part. So once you come up with a structure that you're happy with, then it doesn't take too long to actually build the virtual agent conversation once you're familiar with all the tools and things available to you. So just a quick explanation of my process, which is looking at, there will be a greeting, which is one of the setup topics, so that'll be automatic. And then the user inputs something. So this is what's going to kick off the conversation. So the conversation we're going to have is about a VPN issue, and the user may input that in many different ways in their own language. And then as far as the conversation building is concerned, there'll be a start. So we've acknowledged it's a VPN issue, so that's the start comment, which is, oh, it's a VPN issue. That's a showstopper. Let's see if I can help you. And then I've kept this really basic for the sake of showing you how to build it, which is it starts with what's the issue. And I've outlined, or at least I've said there's only two things that could possibly be the issue. And that's just again for the sake of keeping this example nice and simple. So the issue, and the bot asks, what's the issue? Is it the password's not working, or is it timing out? In any case, it follows a different track based on the issue. So if you say password not working, the virtual agent will say, okay, we'll log this with IT, and then end. The alternative is it's timing out, and it gives you a bit of instruction to say, hey, do you want to try and shut down the VPN and then reopen it? Did that work? The user might say yes, we'll end the conversation. If they say no, okay, we'll log this with IT. And then finish. And we'll put that closing topic, which is one of the setup topics, at the end. So what we'll do is actually go ahead and build that conversation. And what I've done, so you can go through the filter navigator and go to designer. Alternatively, you've got that tool within Studio as well. So that's the way I'm going to build. And I've also previously created the application. So this was for the sake of a workshop, that's the name there, but call it what you will, and we'll jump in. And if you are starting from scratch, okay, all you need to say is create an application file, and you can type in topic, and that's the one you need to open the designer. Okay, so I've already done that previously, and we'll just open up the topic. Okay, so the details as follows, which is the name for this topic is VPN not working. And we'll go ahead and edit the topic flow, and I might close this so I've got a bit more room. Okay, so remember, as part of building that conversation, the virtual agent will have its greeting. The user will input something that will kick off this conversation. So at the very beginning, at the start node, okay, and I've already previously typed it in, which is, oh, it's a VPN issue, that's a showstopper. Let's see if I can help you. So the next thing the bot's going to do is ask for user input and say, what's the issue? So on the left-hand side, you've got tools available to you, which includes user input, bot response, and if we scroll down, there's some utilities as well. So we'll leverage an example in each of these sections. So the first and foremost is for that user input around making a choice. Is it a case of password not working, or is it timing out? So we'll give them that choice by dragging and dropping that element into this designer. Okay, and on the right hand side, we've got the properties for this particular element. So name, we'll keep it nice and simple. How about what's the issue? Which is what the bot will also prompt. So we'll grab that and paste it in there. And then there's other elements as part of the properties, which includes acknowledge message, which might be, okay, thanks, I've got it, or a default value, or a confirmation message. So what we need here are the choices, and we had password not working, and I'm going to copy and paste that for the value. And we also had timing out was the other one. And again, just keeping it simple for the sake of the example. Okay, so they choose one of those elements, and we actually had two different paths that it's going to follow. So what we need in terms of the tools is come down to the utilities, and we're going to pull in the decision. And the decision, okay, we can build out other trees, but we'll stick to the first one first. And to follow this track, okay, or to make it obvious where this track's going, I'll just put this one's to say password not working. So that's the track for that one. And then we can also add another one and just change the property there for timing out. Okay, so let's follow this track first, password not working. And why would we follow that track? Well, it's because when the what's the issue, they selected password not working. So what that means in terms of being able to determine which path it's going to go down, the virtual agent will know because we'll set a condition here. And that is based on what's the issue, they've selected password not working, and that's it. Okay, so once they've chosen that, the next step was to say, okay, we'll log this with IT. And to do that, the bot is first going to let the user know they're going to do that. So we'll pull in, let's say, a text. And with the properties, okay, we'll say, I will create an incident. And the response is the same. So I make them the same because it's nice and easy to follow this path. So the name is what's here and the response is what the virtual agent will respond. Okay, and then we actually need to go ahead and create that incident, which becomes a utility. So we'll say an action. Okay, and that action is create incident, which keeps popping up as a regular thing. Okay, we've already set a condition that'll follow this path, so we don't need to set it again. The action type is it's going to create a record, and the table it'll create that record in is the incident table. And what field values do we want to set? So when it creates the incident, okay, the first thing we want to do is capture the caller, which, okay, you've got your user select there, or you can put in input variables, so follow that arrow and select user. So that'll automatically or dynamically populate that field. What else do we need? Perhaps a short description. In any case, I might use those dynamic fields again and capture what's the issue. Is there anything else? So we could set an assignment group, an urgency, additional comments. So there's plenty of things we can set. We'll keep it nice and simple and just grab those two variables. And last but not least, so we've created the record, but we just need to give feedback to the user that we've done so. So what we'll do is pull in this card. Okay, and the node name is, let's just say, incident feedback. Oops. So the reference type, it's going to show a record, and that record is actually referring back to this element here, the create incident. Otherwise you could show a user record, but it makes sense to do the create incident one. And then on the card, what fields, or at least from a feedback perspective, what should we show the user? So we might show them the number, so an incident number, and then you could also show them the short description. And anything else? Don't know. No, that's enough. All right, keeping it simple. So we'll delete that empty field, and that's everything that we need for that track, remember? And I'll click save. So from there, the conversation will end. So how about the other track? Okay, so it's timing out. We were just going to print a message to the user to say, did you try turning it on and off again? Okay, so in that case, we'll just pull in some text. And actually, before I do anything, did we set the condition here? I don't think we have. So this is based on what's the issue, the user selects timing out. Okay, and the text will say, try restart, for example. So I'll keep it short, but obviously the response message to the user might be, did you try and switch off Acme VPN and turn it on again? How's that? And what that's going to mean is the user is going to be prompted for a decision. Oh, sorry, maybe I should say, can you try? and then we'll say, did that work? Okay, so that's the decision that we're going to ask for. So we'll bring in this static choice again. So just be aware the Boolean one is essentially a checkbox. So we'd rather say, did that work? Copy that and paste it in here. And we'll say yes, yes, or no. So then we've got a decision to be made. Okay, so one way was yes. And if it was yes, we're going to create an incident. Is that right? So we'll say, did that work? This is the track that says yes. Save that. And why don't we actually do this part now, which is if they say yes, sorry, we were going to end it. So yes, it did work. Okay, and we might say something nice saying that's great before we finish off, which we can add into the flow. Why don't we do that? Go on then. So we'll say yes, and in here I'll say awesome. And then it'll end with the finish topic, or the closing topic, I should say. Okay, so that was one track, which was the yes. What about the other track, which was no, it didn't work? And the condition was, did that work? No. So we'll follow this track. And if it didn't work, what do we want to do? I'll create an incident. Okay, so we just actually grab it with our mouse, that arrow, and I'm going to follow, or at least we've already got a shortcut there. So if the password wasn't working, it'll create an incident. And if our restart didn't work, then we'll create an incident. So we'll save that, and we can preview within this mechanism. And why don't we do that actually? It'll open a very large page because I've got this window maximized. But at least now we can see what it looks like. What do you reckon? Let's say it's timing out. Did that work? No, it didn't. There you go. And then it'll do its closing topic. So that's just the preview of that one. And let's take it a step further and we'll publish it on the portal. So just click back within the designer and click publish. And you'll see that it goes into an active state with that little slider there, and it has been published. So to see what this looks like on the service portal, I'll open the out-of-the-box portal. So it's the same URL up to the ServiceNow.com and then /sp. And I've just used another browser tab, logged in as the same user. And we'll pull up the virtual agent chat. Okay, so the virtual agent has a button to show me everything, or you might just say my VPN is not working, and it gives you a matching request. So we'll click VPN not working, and it takes you through that conversation. So is it a case of password not working, or is it timing out? So maybe we'll say password not working this time. And you actually saw it flash in the background. It's gone ahead and created the new incident as we've instructed. So obviously you could write a few tests on your portal or in the preview window, but that's it working on the portal. So just to reflect on what we've done, we've built that conversation, and that's that flow that we outlined earlier. So nice and simple one. But we're not finished there. So the virtual agent, while it could pick up on some keywords, I want to, or would prefer to, incorporate natural language understanding. Okay, so you'll see the difference once we incorporate the model in terms of the experience with the virtual agent. And we'll actually build this from scratch. Okay, so we'll come back to our ServiceNow platform view, and we're finished with the designer. We're going to we're going to go ahead and create application file, and we'll type in NLU so we can get the NLU model. And I might just collapse this menu here. So the model name, let's call it, I'll call it similar to what my workshop name was traditionally, but I mean, call it what you will. And the confidence threshold. So basically for the virtual agent to go ahead with this conversation, it'll have a threshold of confidence. So I think I'll bump that up a bit and say, let's say 75% threshold. So this is a brand new model, and maybe some terminology to get used to, which is new intent. So the intent itself is what does the user intend to do, or what do we want the virtual agent to do? So the intent is that VPN is not working. Okay, and now it asks for examples of utterances, which are phrases that the users might use or say for this conversation to kick off. So a nice example would be more or less, VPN is not working. Might be one of them. And what we're trying to emulate here is what users would actually say. So the great thing about building this model from scratch is the ability to use that user language or even internal language. So if our VPN system, it is called Acme VPN, maybe we put Acme VPN is not working. Or we can say VPN has timed out. So you can put a bunch of phrases in there. Okay, so we've populated a few utterances. The next thing we need to do is train the model. Doesn't take too long, and we can run a few tests here. So if a user was to enter something like VPN not working, here we can see that in terms of a confidence score, it knows to kick off this intent, VPN is not working. That's a very easy one. What if I put help with VPN? It's still very, very sure of that. Or maybe we say can't log in. Can't log into VPN. Okay, and that's one where the threshold isn't as high, so we could add that as one of our utterances here. Okay, so we've run a few tests. We're happy with that. We can go ahead and publish it. There is one setting we need to make sure that we have switched on for the virtual agent to use natural language understanding. So if I just navigate back to the platform UI, so you may have already set this up, but in the general settings, so you can see here I've got in my favorites, it's into the menu collaboration, virtual agent, general settings, and you can see all those setup topics. We'll jump into NLU settings and actually switch that on. And the NLU service provider is the ServiceNow NLU. So we'll make sure we've got that setting in place. And then back in Studio, or if you will, back to the designer. Now that we've switched on NLU, we might need to refresh this page. So what I'll do is actually open that up again. So virtual agent topic VPN not working. Cross that out. Click that. So you'll notice that two new menus have popped up, and one of those is the NLU model. So we created a new model and we called it CEWS. So again, call it what you will, but that's our model. And associated intent for this conversation to kick off is the VPN is not working. You could have multiple intents within a model, but you associate those intents with a conversation or with a topic. Okay, so let's save that, and we will need to publish that again for that to go live. Let's have a look on our service portal. So you will need to refresh that page for those changes to take place. Okay, so it's been refreshed. So what's the difference when we use natural language understanding? So we've got similar prompts from the virtual agent. And here I'll say, Acme VPN is not working. Notice it didn't come up with matching topics this time. Okay, it jumped straight into the conversation because it was very confident that this is the path that we need to go down. So here it goes, VPN, that's a showstopper. We'll say timing out. Can you try switch it on, switch it off again? Yes, that did work. And a very smooth experience. Okay, so the next step is I'm going to take this one more step further actually. So I'll collapse that menu, go back to the VPN is not working NLU intent. So during our conversation, the virtual agent asks us, is it a case of it timing out or is it a password issue? Okay, and the user might have given us that information from the very beginning. So it is possible to actually skip that question and jump to the very next steps of the conversation if we already know that. So to help us understand, we need to adjust our model a little bit. So let's find one. Okay, we do have timed out. So what we can do is actually click the text there and it's got some options here. Okay, we're going to create probably not the easiest of entities. It's called a list entity and say create new one. So the entity name is what part of the conversation that is going to be covered by this entity. So I'll call it VPN issue. Okay, is it simple? Does it have a list? Is it pattern or system derived? So I won't go into the details of those. We can explore that with the resources a bit later. But for this example, it is a list. And do we source that from a particular field? Or in this case, it is a new list. So it said provide values for this entity. And this actually refers to, in our conversation, we had timed out as one of the options. And the other one was called password, not working. And they're the values we gave it in the conversation. So click save. And for this specific text we've highlighted, it is a list entity to do with a VPN issue, and it'll cover that timed out part of the conversation. And if we put password, I suppose we could say is not working. List entity, okay, we're going to do the same thing and actually put it under that category. So we could add a few more if there's different ways timed out might occur, which could be VPN frozen maybe. So they might use that terminology, which essentially means timed out. Okay, or other things, so I cannot access, that was another one. Maybe that's to do with password. Okay, I'm making some assumptions here, but obviously when you design this topic or conversation, you take these things into account. Okay, so we'll train the model again with this new input and new entities and utterances. And we can test it here as well. So if I say, I'll just say can't access Acme VPN, how about that? So the trained model prediction results is 75. What about if I put VPN as timed out? Okay, that is a better example. So we might need more utterances for that earlier one if a user was to type something like that. But here's a better example. So 100% VPN is not working, so it gets that intent. And it's a 95% for an entity called timed out. That's the value. Okay, so that looks good to me. We're going to publish it. And there is some things we need to do that with the designer as well. So how does it know to pass on these entities? So if we jump to the topic and click Edit Topic Flow, so we need to pass these entities into the conversation, and it does happen nice and early with what's the issue. Okay, so in the properties, notice it has associated entity, and we do have VPN issue. That's one we've created from the NLU. And it says enable NLU at input node. So yes, that will be switched on when you associate that entity. And it's got a little switch here, which I do switch on. So skip confirmation for recognized entity. So I prefer to skip it and continue the conversation. What would occur if that's switched off is it says, did you mean that your password's not working, or did you mean that it has timed out? So it actually puts those options for you to confirm, yes, that's actually what I meant, and then continue the conversation. I prefer to skip it. I think it's very cool that it picks it up from the very beginning and can go through that conversation in a quicker way. So I'll save that, and you will need to publish it as well. Okay, let's try this on. So make sure to refresh your service portal. You can use the preview window, but I'll use it here. Okay, so let's just say my password for the VPN is not working. Oh, that's a big sentence. Let's try that on. It's a VPN issue. I'll create an incident. Okay, so remember, as part of the conversation, it would typically ask, and if you said it was a password problem, it would create the incident. So notice how it didn't even bother asking. You've already told it up front, so it can skip that as part of the conversation, which I think is awesome. Okay, I'll quickly wrap up, just letting you know that there are some resources available to you. So not only do you have the product documentation site, but also on the Now Learning site, we have a Virtual Agent Fundamentals Implementation and NLU course. Okay, so that's broken up over 5 hours. And just with the current situation we're in at this time is on Share, somebody has released a Virtual Agent Work From Home pack. So that's definitely worth checking out if you want to have some conversations that are already built for you, and you can amend those to your organization specifics. And I'll finish there. Thanks for watching, and happy building. Cheers.